Caitlin Smith Gilson and Carol Scott, welcome to Bookish Questions with Cultural Debris.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is the first time I've had co-authors on Bookish Questions, so that's a first for this particular segment. And we are going to talk about your new book, Rhapsody Redolence, which I have here and people can see, and it comes from Cascade Books. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is available now. Is that right? I have a copy, so it must be, because I have a copy, so it must be available. And it is a substantial book, but it is also a book of poetry and of art. And one does not see releases of poetry that are that thick very often these days.
Is that a compliment?
Well, it is an expression of being impressed with your output there, because I get these small little, I get these little thin poetry releases, modern poetry releases. That's not a criticism of anybody's poetry. It's just it's a monumental undertaking.
Wait till you see the next one. It's
well,
on the last words of my.
Hold on to that. Let's get through this one, and then you can tell me about that one. But let's talk about this. So this is divided into 10 sections that you label as decades. You have the subtitle, in fact, is The Crystal Decade, and so there are 10, as one would expect, 10 decades.
Yes.
Which, of course, you also have a section tied to the rosary itself.
Yes. So
it's meant to point us to, as we go through, to that idea and to the idea of prayer, and put us in a spiritual mindset. But it is not. What's the best way of putting this? This isn't a. Well, I'm every time I think of a word, I think, well, no, that's wrong. It is not an overtly, religious in a, maybe I should say, in a preachy kind of way. But you are exploring spirituality, but you are also doing it in a very, shall I say, you're exploring spirituality in a visceral way. Can you do that?
Yes.
Can one explore
That's
spirituality
exactly
in a visceral way? Because I think you have. So tell me about the concept for this book first, and then how you all brought it about.
Well, I can say that the book started, you know this from the last time we interviewed, due to certain kinds of wokeism, things like that at my university, theology and philosophy got shut down. I had a number of writing projects, but I realized that the experience of philosophical and spiritual wonder had almost deadened. That crushing sadness, the change in your life, the difficulty of what am I going to do next? And I started writing poems. And this would be my second volume of poetry. And what I was looking for with the 10, which are all a nod to Our Lady, because it is a decade, was to recover wonder through the forever firsts. So God, sex, surrender, death, art, love, suffering, time, the things that you experience right away and that take you back and place you in as you said, a visceral experience of the firsts of spirituality. So I began writing, and I realized that I wanted art for the book. And I always turn to this one when I need a cover for for my books.
And I wasn't a part of the concept of writing at the time.
Yes. And we got to talking, and she ended up doing a St. Teresa painting and a redolent blue painting that I had helped pose for. And when we were writing back and forth, I was in Rome with my study abroad class. We were writing back and forth about the process of the art. I realized that she was becoming part of the book.
And it was artist, creator, muse, inspiration, whole concept of embodying every experience as art. Caitlin became the art herself as well as the creator of the art.
So it was, and I describe it in the introduction as you're pouring yourself, artist and poet, into the creative process, into the other and through the other to Christ, which is what St. Thomas Aquinas sets out as the longer way, where the angels arrive at beatitude, much quicker. We have the longer way through friendship, through creation, through art, through suffering, love, death, all of the aspects of the 10 cycles. There's a phenomenology going on as well, because in phenomenology, you would say that experience has 3 components: experience, to be experienced by the other, and then humans have the capacity to experience being experienced. So it's that kind of triptych sensibility in wonder and in creation that we're trying to capture in the book. Is that naturalness of the way to God in life.
So it takes us through these decades, and as you say, it's bringing us, I guess, the long way.
Yes.
And the culmination ultimately is a discovery of God, and a discovery of I guess, insight into that. We bring the decades come together to bring us to that point.
Yes. And when I was organizing, you'll notice that suffering is the final decade. You have love and you have suffering, because on this side of eternity, there will always be that longing and that desire for God, because no earthly happiness can complete us. And I was saying, St. Thomas in the Summa Conscience Gentiles, will this fulfill us? Will that fulfill us? And we have lots of things that refresh us, lots of joys and happinesses and art and creation that refreshes us on this side of eternity. But nothing on earth is the final. And that's why suffering is not in a nihilistic way at the end of the book, but it's the reminder. We've gone through all of this, and this is the final decade.
It's the experience of being human in relationship to being with God.
Yes.
And faith.
And there's a little bit of background, because we became dear friends years ago. I don't know if you can see it.
We've been friends for over 8 years.
You can see the rosary up there. We have it in the room right now because we're taking it to New York for the show. But the decade refers to that rosary. That is a rosary she had been given for your confirmation.
Confirmation from my grandmother. And the crystal decade, the idea of using a crystal rosary, the rosary is one of my prayer practices.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So anytime I'm over here, we're saying a rosary. And a lot of her art is put under crystal. And so a lot of the pieces in the book are under crystal, that I meditate on the language of light and refraction.
It changes the imagery, where you're not just looking at the object itself, but you're seeing it through a different vehicle to magnify the possibilities of sight. So that becomes more luminous and exciting, instead of just seeing the simple object with clarity, more like a meditation on a thought or an idea than just staring at a flower or a glass or a rose or a tree. More of a soulful interpretation of an experience.
So instead of seeing through a glass darkly, we're seeing through a glass brightly, I suppose.
Brightly.
Perfect.
Brightly.
Exactly. Now, Alan, when you went to Italy the first time and you walked the cobblestone streets and you saw all the churches and the icons, I can remember as a young student just being consumed by wonder. And then over time, over time you lose that. And there's this great line from Chesterton where he talks about how maybe God is younger than us because he has an appetite for wonder, and that sin ages us. So, when I got to that point of, I can't write this technical book yet that I've got due under contract, and I can't write that. And it was attempting to recover wonder and joy and beauty in those forever firsts, those experiences that have that immediacy to us, stop you in your tracks. Overwhelm you. I can't remember it, but there's in Bologna the lamentation the sculptures of Christ. I can't remember.
I specifically went to see that on your recommendation when I went last year.
Yeah,
so
we were
incredible.
busy rushing in and out with my study abroad, went in, and it just stopped you. And that's the goal of the book. So when you say it's not overt, it's precisely because you're looking for that underneath experience that pulls you there, pulls even the hardened soul, pulls the soul that says, I don't believe in God, but then gets struck by something, something of Carol's that's so beautiful that it softens the heart and makes way for Christ.
Let me ask you a little bit about your writing process. And we touched on this some last time, and I will mention, of course, and I will link this in show notes, that I did a full-length interview with you, and Carol also joined for part of that last year. So we did a long, full Cultural Debris podcast episode, and you talked a little bit then about your collaboration approach. Tell us how you work together to bring this book about.
Well, she was in Rome and I was here in Metairie, and we would go back and forth, and I'd say something, and she said, that would make a good line in my poem. And I said, well, just use it. And she said, no, I can't use it without giving you credit. And I wound up, she'd say something, I'd respond in a text. She'd say something, I'd respond in a text. And it just got that we were sharing our thoughts in poetic form, where it was call and response.
We call it a call and response.
A call and response way of working. Sometimes I would start and she would respond. But most of the time, Caitlin was the leader and she would say something and I'd have to put my 2 cents in.
And we were also responding to the art. She was creating a number of pieces during.
I'm always working. So it was thoughts about what I was doing in the creative process and the idea of making it into a new, wondrous experience, bringing the art to life. And poetry is bringing words to an artistic life, an artistic level, instead of just the mere words themselves.
Yes.
Instead of like Caitlin's academic books.
Right. Sure. And I can say the book was a grace. It was such a grace.
And we just couldn't control ourselves. We just kept writing and writing.
As you can tell.
Well, it's
been nominated for the Griffin Prize, which is exciting.
That's why we've got. No, I'm giving you all a hard time. So,
good.
So you mentioned it. You mentioned at the beginning that there is perhaps another book in process. So tell me a little bit about that. And then I need to know about Carol's art projects that she's having to start.
Absolutely. Well, we have a wonderful, just first off, Carol is a joie de vivre artist for New Orleans. It's a really great Catholic art guild. And so they're very excited about the books too. But our editor, Robin Perry, in England, I sent him, I said, you know what, we've got more poems, and they're starting to turn into a meditation on the last words of Christ. So it's called Luminous Darkness, the 7 Last Words of Christ. And it's coming out in 2025 through Kalos, which is an imprint within Cascade. And it's going to have divided through the 7 last words, also have a Holy Saturday section, an Easter Sunday, and of course we may need a lagniappe because there's
a lot more than 7 last words.
Yeah, for us.
Yes, yes, you have that in this as well, the lagniappe.
And the art is in color because the publisher wanted it in color, so we're super excited about that. And just to give you a little bit more, I have a book for the lay audience on heaven that the publisher split into 2, forgiveness, and heaven's also going to have Carol's art in color. And my publisher wanted some of the poems from Luminous Darkness, the 7 last words, to lead each of the chapters. So all 3 books.
So Caitlin has 3 new books coming out.
Are kind of a correspondence together. Mm-hmm. It's the Cambridge one.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Too much goes on.
Well, you all are hard to keep up with. You're as I've told some authors in the past, you're writing faster than I can read. So you're gonna have to slow down a little bit.
The Muses. But I got to tell you about Carol. She got accepted into Cianciano, the biennial, which is really big show. They have artists from all over the world, so 40 different countries. Very, very small, difficult selection rate. And her piece, Crystal and Coke, it's fantastic. It's got crystal and Coke, old-fashioned Coke container.
They selected 150 artists internationally.
Yeah.
For one-person show at Gallery 600 Julia with Dr. Susie Sayward is the curator of the show here in New Orleans. And I have a piece in the International Colored Pencil Society Show of America in Brea, California, opening in August as well.
And those pieces are in the book, so it's exciting to see.
Wonderful.
And I had a wonderful retrospective and book signing at a place in New Orleans called The Building with
Connie Labatt,
with the owner, and
St. Francis.
Okay.
We got St. Francis in New York City, a semester-long show of the arts, plus a two-day lecture on September 25th and 6th in St. Francis College, New York, on the book, and a gallery walkthrough of all the art from the book. So we thank Bianca for that too.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, incredible, amazing. Well, congratulations, Carol. You are all over the place. When do you go to Tuscany?
We don't know exactly when we leave. We're making the plans now, but it should be sometime towards the end of July because we're hand delivering the piece.
I'm a godmom. I got a baptism on the 21st. I think we're going to be going pretty much a day or so after because it has to be dropped off around the 25th of July for the show.
Well, there are worse things than having to go to Tuscany. So
no, I think this is about the best thing ever. I can't wait for the food again. And the wine, the food, the wine, the views. And it's 13 galleries.
Oh wow, that's a lot of art. The book is Rhapsody Redolence. It is from Cascade Books, and more. There's more to come. Caitlin and Carol, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.